Welcome, brave soul, I am the forgotten storyteller. Before we begin, tap that like button if you dare, and drop a comment below telling me where in the world you're listening from. And if you make it to the end of this video, I hope to see you in the next story. I hope you're ready, because I am. Let's begin. The first thing you hear is the breathing. Slow and uneven. Close enough that you can feel it against your ear. The darkness is so thick it seems to weigh on your chest, and you can't tell if your eyes are open or shut. Somewhere beyond you, close but not close enough to see, something shifts in the blackness. Leaves crunch under an unseen foot. Then comes the whisper. A woman's voice, soft as moth wings, carrying words you don't quite understand, except for your name. Our story today begins at the far edge of Ashgrove County, where the land buckles into steep ravines and a forest older than memory swallows the light by midday. The locals call it the Hollow, but in older records, if you can find them, it goes by another name, Ethel's Wood. No map marks it, no tourist dares it, and the county sheriff swears there's nothing in there but raccoons and snakes. But ask the people who've lived here long enough to remember the winters before electricity, and you'll hear about the woman in black. Ethel Black. They say she was a widow twice over before she turned 30, that she could call storms with a curse and keep a man from sleeping with a single word. They say the townsfolk dragged her into the hollow one winter's night, bound her hands with iron, and left her for the crows. And they say she never died. She just sank into the trees. The winter that our story begins, Ashgrove is quieter than usual. Not because of the snow or the price of heating oil, but because people are missing. The first was a high school senior named Jordan Hayes. His parents thought he'd run away to the city until his younger sister came forward and said she'd heard him talking to someone outside her window at night, someone who called herself Ethel. Then came the Whitlock twins, found wandering barefoot near the tree line with frostbite on their toes and no memory of the last 2 days. By the time the third disappearance hits the news, the whole county is on edge. It begins small. One night, he wakes to find the window open, frost crusting the sill and muddy footprints across his floorboards. They start at the window. They stop at his bed. He tells himself it's a prank, maybe some local kid trying to scare the newcomer. But the next night, he dreams of walking barefoot through the hollow, cold branches combing through his hair, a woman's voice murmuring, "Don't look back." By the end of that week, Daniel decides to ask around. At the diner in town, the waitress, middle-aged with a voice roughened by cigarettes, warns him not to go poking around the woods at night. "That's how she gets you," she says, and when Daniel asks who, she just shakes her head and walks away. An old man at the counter leans over and whispers, "Ethel Black. She feeds on your fear, boy. Knows it before you do." Daniel doesn't believe in ghosts, but he's starting to believe something is very wrong. That night, the dreams return, sharper than before. He's in the forest again, but this time it feels real. The air is wet and heavy, smelling of moss and iron. He hears the sound of something moving just behind him, soft steps in the leaf litter, perfectly in time with his own. When he stops, it stops. When he starts, it follows. And then, just beside his ear, the whisper, "You've already looked back." Daniel wakes to find dirt under his nails and pine needles in his hair. The footprints are there again, leading from the woods to his bed. In the days that follow, the whispers change. They're no longer confined to sleep. He hears them in the middle of the day, while chopping wood, while washing dishes, always that same low, feminine voice. Sometimes she says his name. Sometimes she says things he's never told anyone, memories from his childhood that no one else could know. By now, he's heard enough local gossip to piece together the story. Ethel Black was accused of witchcraft in the late 1800s after 3 children disappeared from the town. When their bodies were found in the hollow, bound in willow roots, the townsfolk decided she was to blame. No trial. No mercy. Just rope, iron, and a forest that would keep it secret. But here's the thing. After Ethel's disappearance, the woods were never the same. People spoke of a shadow that moved without wind, of voices calling them deeper, of eyes in the dark that glowed like amber. And sometimes, when the snow fell just right, you could see her, standing between the trees in her black dress, watching. Daniel is a man who likes answers, and the only way to get them is to go in. On the first night of the new moon, he packs a flashlight, a hunting knife, and his uncle's old revolver. The snow is knee-deep by the time he reaches the first row of trees. The woods are silent in that unnatural way that makes you feel like you're being listened to. His breath puffs in the cold, hanging in the air like smoke. The deeper he goes, the stranger it gets. The trees seem closer together than they should be. The path underfoot changes without warning, mud, then snow, then dry leaves. Once, he sees something dark between the trunks ahead of him, but when he swings his flashlight, there's nothing. Then comes the smell. Sweet at first like flowers but undercut by something foul, rot maybe. It grows stronger until he steps into a clearing. In the middle of it stands a single, towering willow, its branches bare but dripping with ice. Beneath it, half buried in snow, is a shape. At first he thinks it's a deer. Then the flashlight beam catches a pale hand. Daniel's breath catches in his throat. The hand is too still, too white, the fingers curved as if frozen mid-grasp. He steps forward, snow crunching under his boots, and the rest of the shape comes into view. A woman lying on her side, her long black dress tangled with roots that curl from the ground like the fingers of the dead. Her hair is dark, matted with frost, and even in the weak beam of the flashlight he can see the faint blue tinge of her lips. For a moment he thinks she's truly dead. Then her chest rises. Barely. Daniel's instincts scream at him to turn and run, but his legs don't move. The woman's eyes flutter open. They are not human eyes, they glint gold in the dark, catching the light in a way that makes them seem like molten metal. When she speaks, her lips hardly move, yet the words curl directly into his mind. You came. Daniel staggers back, nearly dropping the flashlight. What the hell are you? Her smile is slow and cold. Then she says, hungry. The roots tighten around her, shifting in the snow like living things. The branches above rustle, though the air is still. Daniel feels a sudden weight in his chest, his heartbeat slowing, his breath growing shallow, as if the cold itself is sinking into his lungs. He can't look away from her eyes. Then he hears it. Not her voice, not exactly, but the echo of his own worst memories whispering from the dark. The night his brother drowned. The look on his father's face the day he walked out and never came back. Words he swore no one else would ever hear. She's showing him his own fears, feeding on the spike of panic each one brings. Daniel forces himself to break eye contact. He stumbles back, muttering, No, you're not real. But the forest seems to shift around him, trees bending, the path behind him gone. The voice comes again, nearer now, though her body hasn't moved. I am older than your blood. I was here when the first stones were laid in your town. I was here when they burned the first house. I will be here when the last name is forgotten. And then the tone changes, softer, persuasive. But you could be mine. No fear, no pain. Just the hollow and you and me. Daniel grips the revolver. His fingers are numb, and for the first time he wonders if it would even matter, if a bullet could kill something that doesn't breathe like it should. He lifts it anyway, aiming squarely between her golden eyes. Her smile widens. You think that will save you? You've already given me what I need. The ground shudders beneath him, and the snow bursts upward as roots and vines coil around his ankles. He fires, the sound deafening in the frozen air, but the bullet hits the willow trunk behind her with a dull thud. The roots yank hard, dragging him to his knees. The flashlight falls from his grip, spinning across the snow until its beam illuminates something half buried at the tree's base. A bundle of rags, bound with rope. No, not rags. Children's clothes, small ones. Daniel's stomach turns. This is the place where they found the bodies. The whispers swell in his ears, louder now, overlapping as if 100 voices speak at once. Some sobbing, some laughing, some screaming. His pulse hammers in his skull, and the roots keep pulling, drawing him closer to her. He shuts his eyes. Thinks of the old man's warning. She feeds on your fear. Knows it before you do. If that's true, then maybe he can starve her. Daniel forces his breathing to slow. He pictures a blank wall in his mind, shutting out the memories, the whispers. The panic fights back, clawing for his attention, but he refuses to give it. He focuses on the cold against his skin, the smell of ice and rot, the way the revolver feels in his hand. The voices falter. Ethel tilts her head, her smile fading into something sharper, less human. Don't, she hisses, and the sound makes the trees groan as if under sudden weight. The roots hesitate. Just enough. Daniel pulls the knife from his belt and hacks at them, one by one, until the grip around his legs loosens. He scrambles to his feet, grabs the flashlight, and runs. The forest shifts and twists, paths folding into one another, but he keeps going. Every whisper tries to pull him back, every shadow reaches for him, but he doesn't stop until the trees thin and the pale light of the moon touches his face. By the time he reaches the edge of the woods, his lungs burn and his hands are bleeding from where the roots cut into his skin. He doesn't look back. He knows if he does, she'll be there, standing between the trees, smiling. The next morning, the snow outside his cabin is undisturbed. No footprints. No sign of the night before. He tells himself it was a nightmare, the product of too much whiskey and too little sleep. But when he goes to wash his hands, he notices something under his nails. black splinters, like pieces of old, rotted wood. Over the next week, Daniel tries to return to normal, but the whispers don't stop. They don't come every night, not like before, but when they do, they bring new memories, new fears. Things he hasn't even lived yet. One night, he hears his own voice calling from the woods. Another night, it's his brother's voice, the one who drowned, asking why Daniel didn't save him. Then, on the 12th day, someone knocks on his door. It's the sheriff, a man named Pike. He's holding a photo, Jordan Hayes, the missing teenager. "You seen this boy?" he asks. Daniel shakes his head. "Last anyone saw him," Pike says, "he was walking toward the hollow." He glances toward the tree line, his face hard. "If you hear anything strange, you let me know." As Pike walks away, Daniel notices something sticking out from under his doormat. It's a scrap of fabric, small and torn, child-sized. That night, the wind cuts through the valley like a knife, rattling the shutters and making the pines sway like black pendulums. Daniel sits at the kitchen table, the scrap of fabric between his fingers. He's turned it over 100 times, trying to convince himself it's nothing, just a piece of old cloth caught on the porch. But deep down, he knows it's hers. The hollow has been patient, waiting, just testing. And now it wants him back. The whisper comes just after midnight. Not from a dream this time, but from the far corner of the room, low and soft as a sigh. "They're calling for you, Daniel." He freezes, his hand tightening around the fabric. "They're cold. They're alone. You can bring them home." The words scrape against something inside him. Guilt, grief, the bone-deep ache of losing people you'll never see again. He knows he should ignore it. Knows that following the voice is exactly what she wants. But the sound of it, it's like hearing his brother on the other end of the line after all these years. By the time Daniel steps outside, the snow is falling in slow, heavy flakes. The woods are a black wall ahead of him, but the path seems clearer tonight, straight, beckoning. He tells himself this is the last time. He'll end it whatever it takes. He tucks the revolver into his belt, shoulders his coat, and walks into the hollow. The forest greets him with silence. Not the silence of a sleeping place, but the heavy, pressing quiet of something holding its breath. His boots crunch on the snow, and each sound seems to echo too far, bouncing between the trunks. The deeper he goes, the more the trees lean toward him, their bare branches knitting overhead until the moonlight is gone. Then the path begins to change. The snow under his foot softens, becomes damp earth, then wet leaves. A smell rises, sweet rot, like overripe fruit. The air is thicker here, harder to breathe. And then he hears it, a soft, rhythmic sobbing. Daniel follows the sound until he steps into a clearing and freezes. They're all there. Jordan Hayes, the Whitlock twins, and others he doesn't recognize, standing in a loose circle around the willow tree. Their eyes are wide and glassy, their lips moving soundlessly. Snowflakes fall onto their hair and shoulders, but none of them seem to notice. And beneath the willow, tangled in its roots, stands Ethel Black. She's taller now than he remembers, her black dress flowing like smoke into the ground, her hair shifting in an unseen wind. The golden eyes fix on him, and he feels the same crushing weight in his chest as before. "You came back," she says, her voice echoing like it's spoken from inside his own skull. Daniel grips the revolver. "Let them go. Do it right now." She tilts her head, amused. "You speak as if they're prisoners. They came willingly as you did." "I'm not staying." Her smile sharpens. "No, you'll stay because you're afraid. And I am so very hungry." The air changes, thickening, vibrating, and the children begin to whisper. At first, Daniel can't make out the words. Then they grow louder, their voices overlapping into a chant. He realizes they're speaking his name, over and over, and it's getting faster. He aims the gun, but his hand shakes. His vision swims. The memories come harder now, not just his but dozens of others. Men dying alone in the snow, women screaming in the dark, children being pulled into the trees. The fear swells in him like a tide, and with it, her form grows sharper, more solid. "No," he gasps, trying to force his mind to go blank, to starve her again. But she's stronger now. The blank wall crumbles. Ethel takes a step forward. The snow hisses under her feet. "Look at me, Daniel." He refuses. Fires a shot into the ground between them. The children don't flinch. She doesn't blink. "Look at me." The voice is no longer a request. It's a command, one that burrows into his mind like a hook. Against his will, his gaze lifts, meets those molten eyes. And then she changes. Her face becomes his brother's. Wet hair plastered to pale skin. Blue lips. "You let me drown," it says. He tries to speak, but his throat closes. The The face shifts again, his father the last time Daniel saw him. The contempt in his eyes. You were never enough. Then his mother, the day of her funeral, lying in the coffin with that awful stillness. Each image cuts deeper, bleeding fear into the hollow. The forest hums with it, the willows shuddering overhead. The roots rise like snakes, curling toward him. And somewhere inside, something breaks. Daniel laughs. It's a low, cracked sound at first, but it grows. The fear is still there, gnawing at him, but he clings to the absurdity of it. The idea that a centuries-old witch is wasting her immortality playing parlor tricks with his memories. The laughter cuts through the chant of the children. It makes her pause. You think this is funny? She says, her voice hard now. Daniel says, I think you're desperate. The roots hesitate. The golden light in her eyes flickers. He takes the chance, lunges forward, driving the knife straight into the trunk of the willow behind her. The effect is immediate. The children scream, their voices tearing into the night. The ground heaves and a sound like splintering bone echoes through the clearing. Ethel form ripples, her black dress shredding into smoke. The roots whip wildly, slicing his coat, clawing at his arms, but Daniel keeps twisting the blade. Sap, thick, black, reeking of rot, pours from the wound in the tree. Ethel shrieks, and the sound is inhuman, rattling the air itself. Her face shifts through a dozen forms in a blink. Some human, some not, before it begins to dissolve. The children collapse in the snow. The last thing Daniel hears before she's gone is a whisper, faint but clear. I'll find you, this is not the end. The forest falls silent. Daniel pulls the knife free, staggers back, and drops to his knees. The willow is still, its branches heavy with ice, its roots retreating into the soil. The children are breathing, their eyes no longer glassy. Jordan Hayes blinks at him, shivering. Where are we? Daniel doesn't answer. He just helps them up, one by one, and leads them out of the hollow before the trees can change their minds. By dawn, they're back in Ashgrove. The sheriff doesn't ask questions, not in front of the children. But when they're alone, Pike gives Daniel a long look. You went in there, he says. Daniel nods. Did you kill it? Daniel hesitates. I don't think it can be killed. Pike exhales through his nose, like that's the answer he expected. Then you'd better hope it doesn't remember you. For a week, Daniel sleeps with the revolver beside his bed. The whispers don't return. The woods are quiet. Then one night, as he's drifting off, he hears breathing beside his ear. Very slow and uneven. And a voice, soft as moth wings, murmuring, I told you that I would find you. Let us know in the comments, if you were Daniel, would you have gone back?
Ready for spine-chilling tales that will haunt your thoughts. Subscribe to Forgotten Storyteller for eerie narrations, unsettling mysteries, and haunting stories you won't forget. Hit the bell icon so you never miss a story, because some stories refuse to stay buried. Join us, if you dare.